Hey guys, it's Jack Cypher here, and today we're going to dive straight into a very controversial topic with Naruto versus Luffy. Now, the protagonists of all big three shonen series always have contention behind who's stronger, who'd win out of X and Y. You all know the deal, and let's be honest, I'm never going to truly satisfy every person watching this video. Whether you're a Naruto fan or you're a Luffy fan, you're going to be upset at the end of the day. Now, there are tons of verse battles out there on the internet between Naruto characters, Bleach characters, and Dragon Ball characters. You don't often see One Piece characters included in that list, and I think that's because people assume that those three series I just mentioned are stronger series than One Piece, which I can see why people would think that. However, I think it's more like with shows with Naruto, for instance, it's the end of series Naruto characters that go completely bonkers. And part 1 of Naruto, and even 90% of Shippuden, I reckon, actually contend well with the One Piece cast of characters. And that's what we're going to be doing in this video. We're going to be having Naruto and Luffy, but we're going to be doing them in different stages of their characters. For instance, the first part of this video is going to be end of part 1 Naruto versus pre-Enies Lobby Luffy. So a Luffy just before he gets his Gear 2nd and Gear 3rd abilities. Part 2 is going to be Naruto just before he acquires Sage Mode versus Luffy just before the time skip. Part 3 will be Sage Mode Naruto versus Gear 4th Luffy. And Part 4 will be KCM 1 Naruto versus Luffy post-katakuri fight. And to cap it off, we'll have Part 5, KCM 2 Naruto versus the current up-to-date Luffy. Now, I'm not going to be doing 6 paths Naruto and above, because we all know that he's just going to stomp there. Now, Luffy at the end of One Piece, who knows what ridiculous powers he may have acquired. Maybe Kubo will go the Kishimoto route with it and make all these characters insanely powerful. But for right now, we'll just be going up to KCM 2 Naruto. Now, it should be obvious, but I'm also going to throw out a massive spoiler warning here. Everything that I'll be talking about up until the end of the video will all be stuff that's in the anime. However, in the Part 5 section, I will be talking about major spoilers that revolve around Luffy and his powers. But I will let you guys know when that comes up. But for right now, I should preference that I have the intelligence of a shonen protagonist, and I'm an extreme novice when it comes to power scaling. So bear with me a little bit, and I'll try explain everything I say. So let's get right into this, with who would win out of end of part 1 Naruto and Water 7 Luffy. Let's first go over their speed. Now, when it comes to speed scaling an anime character, speed can be so contentious. So to get started, I'll be saying that part 1 Naruto isn't light speed. Now, people like to argue this because he was shown to dodge some of Haku's attacks. I won't argue with you that Haku potentially has light speed scaling, but I will argue that he didn't use it against Naruto, because 1, he was a pacifist and didn't want to be fighting Naruto, and 2, he might not be able to use that speed all the time. At this point in Naruto, they weren't throwing around light speed feats. Most characters, at the very most, were sitting around that sound and lightning levels of speed. Naruto being light speed this early creates so many problems. I wouldn't even say that part 1 Naruto is even lightning level. Kid Kakashi, we obviously know, is lightning level, and would have grown considerably since he was that age, and yet he's still significantly stronger than Naruto and Sasuke in part 1, easily able to blitz in and stop and redirect Naruto's Rasengan and Sasuke's Chidori. And to make matters worse, the Sound 4 that were having issues against 2 weak Jonin, while those Jonin were injured, and Kakashi scales miles higher than these two. So if Naruto and Sasuke pre their stronger forms in the final valley were relative to the Sound 4, then that would mean Kakashi is scaling much higher, yet hasn't displayed any light speed feats. And if we say that Naruto can perform light speed movement, then that conversely would make Kakashi even faster than light, which just hasn't been shown. Now, I hope I don't need to explain more why this version of Naruto isn't light speed, but I did need to get that rant out of the way, so let's keep going. Now, Luffy's best speed feat in this area of the story would be keeping up and battling with Eneru, or Enel, but I'll be going with Eneru for this video. Someone who is literally lightning itself, putting Luffy just at that lightning level, if not just below, if you want to downplay him a little bit. Now, like with Naruto, there's an argument that Luffy is light speed as well, because of everything with Foxy's photon slow beams. Now, just to make things less complicated, I'm going to say because of the nature of Foxy's devil fruit, that this feat isn't foolproof, so I'm not going to count it. Also, at this time, like Naruto, narratively speaking, it just doesn't make much sense. If we do go back to Naruto, I would say he's sitting around that 10 to 20 times faster than sound margin, given that, like you probably know, Curse Mark 1 Sasuke was evading attacks at the speed of sound, and it's widely believed that the Curse Mark level 2 is a 10 times multiplier, giving Naruto this level of speed since he was contending with Sasuke. But lightning is significantly faster, so that would give Luffy the win in terms of speed. Now, I should preference that this is just combat speed for my own sanity. So, as this video continues, characters that are getting to, the light speed margin, it's only used for speed in combat. It's not accounting for traveling speeds like taking a vacation or being able to throw your fist at the speed of light. Now, why it's like this, it's just anime logic, so don't question it. But if you took things too realistically while looking at this, it would be freaking pandemonium. So, with that amazing logic, it's strictly combat speed. Now, their AP is interesting, and just a preference as this video moves forward, I'm going to be referring to AP to describe anything that's an offensive power / destructive power. I'm going to be calling it all AP for attack power. Naruto obviously has his Rasengan, and then, when he's in his chakra mode against Sasuke, he has a bigger, more powerful version of the Rasengan. We never see truly how destructive it is, so it's a little bit hard to quantify that, but we do know that his regular Rasengans are capable of taking down Kakashi-level opponents, as seen with Kabuto, if he can hit someone with it at least. And it can easily destroy trees and would probably be classed as somewhat of a giant boulder level of AP if you're being generous with it. Now, this is where I find power scaling to be a little bit difficult, because Luffy, for instance, has many insane strength feats. He's able to completely throw a massive sea beast, which is roughly the size of one of the big toads from Mount Miyaboku, if not a bit bigger, and Luffy freaking throws it round and round like a freaking pinwheel, and then off into the distance, like it weighs absolutely nothing. But that's the thing, we don't know how much that sea creature weighs, so we can only guess at the feat, so it's hard to quantify. But to me, it's still an insane strength feat that Naruto Part 1 doesn't come close to showing. He's also able to punch through Crocodile's sand technique and send the Bond villain straight through the bedrock of the city and like freaking 100 or 200 meters into the air, which once again is hard to quantify. But it gets much greater than boulder level. He's strong enough to whip his arm about with a giant metal ball of gold attached to it like it's nothing. And even though it's more of a gag action, Luffy is also shown to be able to send characters absolutely flying with his Gum Gum powers, showing an insane amount of physical strength. Now, usually you could maybe say that that's just Oda being silly and that it shouldn't be counted. But given what we know about Luffy in the current manga, there might be a little bit more to that than meets the eye, so I'm actually going to count it. Even without that, I would still say Luffy stomps in terms of strength. And now next we'll talk about their durability, and I'll be throwing their healing factors into their durability category as well. And this is where Naruto would have the advantage, especially if he was to activate his Kurama cloak, showing that he could heal easily from a Chidori straight through the chest. Luffy also is actually quite underrated in terms of durability. He takes a lot of damage and continues to fight. And actually looking at it, he gets pierced through the midsection from Crocodile's hook, and he's able to be okay from it by just eating some meat. Now, of course, he doesn't heal from it as fast as Naruto would, but he still has impressive durability. But Naruto would edge him out there. Luffy's other advantage is his rubber body. A lot of Naruto's attacks just wouldn't work on Luffy thanks to his rubber body being immune to blunt attacks. The only thing Naruto could really resort to would be the Rasengan or his kunai. Now, Naruto is never really shown using kunai too much. He pops one out every now and again, but you would by no means call him a master. Luffy is also used to fighting multiple opponents at the same time, sometimes fighting up to hundreds of opponents at once, so he would feel very comfortable being able to take on Naruto's shadow clones. And with his strength and speed advantage, I feel like Luffy wouldn't have too much of an issue taking Naruto's shadow clones out. And I think that Naruto would have a very hard time restraining Luffy with his shadow clone so that he could get a Rasengan in, simply for the fact of Luffy's body being made out of rubber. Say Naruto was holding him down with shadow clones, Luffy's just so slippery he could stretch out his head and hit them all with like a gum bell attack. And then there's just even the question of Naruto being able to hit Luffy with Luffy's massive speed advantage. So I would say our part 1 fight results in Luffy getting the W without too much difficulty. Now, I wonder how many people just clicked off this video because of that. If you're still here though, let's move on to part 2 Luffy at the end of the time skip versus Naruto just before learning Sage Mode. Now, I'm just going to come out and say it, Luffy gets the win here again. If anything, it would probably be more severe. Naruto doesn't show too much development from the time skip. He gets some new abilities in his arsenal, I guess. Obviously the Rasen Shuriken, however this isn't the Sage Mode version of it, so he can't throw it. When he first uses it against Kakazu, it actually probably has the biggest AoE damage area we've seen from the Rasen Shuriken. So if we want to be generous, we could say that the Rasen Shuriken is large building level, or if you want to jerk it off, then small city block level. He also has a giant Rasengan, which is probably small building level from the damage we get to see against Itachi. He's also more proficient of breaking out of Genjutsu now, which, let's face it, is totally irrelevant in this fight, and he would have had a slight increase in strength and speed, though it's hard to quantify how much his physical stats have increased. To be fair, you could say that he was at Kakashi's level of speed and strength if you want, but to be honest, it's not going to make too much of a difference. So even for this part, let's even jerk Naruto off even more and say he's actually showing stronger stats than Kakashi. Now, the reason I'm giving Naruto this advantage is because this is where things start getting really crazy for Luffy. And if you're a One Piece fan, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But back on Thriller Bark, Bartholomew Kuma shows up and has a battle with an injured and fatigued Zoro. And Kuma has this little ability to be able to repel anything, including himself, at the speed of light. And an injured Zoro, I should preference that, an injured Zoro is able to evade these attacks. And Luffy is relative to a fully powerful Zoro. So Luffy in his base form is sitting on that light speed level. But it gets even more crazy when you think of Luffy going gear second, which is at the very minimum a 5 times amp. This multiplier is calculated by base Luffy being able to fight evenly with Bluno, someone who has a Doriki of 820, but later on that same Luffy could then match Rob Lucci by activating his gear second, which is impressive because Lucci has a base Doroki of 4000, making that jump from activating Gear Second about a 5 times multiplier. But Lucci goes further and enters his Zoan form, which people like to think is roughly a times 2 amp, and Luffy is contending with him, making that Gear Second multiplier more like a 10 times amp. But if you want to lowball him and say it's only a 5 times amp, then I'm not going to argue with you. Now let's just pause for just a moment. If you guys think Luffy being 5 times the speed of light is ridiculous, that's totally fine, I get it. But regardless of if he's over light speed, I don't think we can argue that he's at the very least faster than Naruto. And also, with the Kuma scaling, I know some of you might say that just because he says it's light speed doesn't necessarily mean it is, which is fair. But then that has to be true of things like lasers in anime, or Madara's light fang. We only think it's the speed of light because Madara calls it so. And yes, I know it's mentioned in the data book that the light fang is the speed of light, but in anime, when we get characters naming their moves after light, we often chalk it up as light speed. So I think it's only fair to say that Kuma is demonstrating light speeds here. For me, this also becomes more relevant when you're power scaling characters from different anime, because it's incredibly to find out just how fast that character is, because you can say that light speed is moving differently in different dimensions. So that's why I'm going off statements. The reason I'm counting this and not the Haku and Foxy feats also is because we're at a point in the story where One Piece is throwing out some of their heavy hitters. And from this point on in the story, light is mentioned, like with Kizaru. But Luffy already seems way too overpowered, so for right now we'll just bench any of the Kizaru speed scaling debates. Now, let's get back onto the video with Luffy's Gear Third ability. With this, Luffy's AP goes up even further, and it follows the same pattern as his Gear Second form, but this time just with strength. In this form, he was seriously able to injure Rob Lucci, something he was having difficulty with in his Gear Second. So lowballing it would be a 5 to 10 times increase in strength, and a high ball would probably be anywhere between 10 to 13 times increase. He's able to destroy massive marine ships with it, vice admiral giants, and huge government towers, putting him around, if not just below multi-city block level in my opinion at least. Now, while Luffy probably has more AoE damage with his attacks, let's not sell Naruto short, because his Rasen Shuriken can work at the cellular level, making it a death sentence to anyone caught up in it. But Naruto's inability to be able to use that move from a distance, and with more flexibility, gives Luffy that massive advantage over him in an actual fight. And I reckon just in terms of combat, Luffy would be able to get around the stiffness of Naruto's Rasen Shuriken and be able to take him out with a Gear Third giant-fisted punch. And it would probably potentially only take one attack, because depending on how many Rasen Shurikens Naruto has tried to use, his chakra could be incredibly low. And if he isn't using his Rasen Shurikens, then Luffy's just using his massive speed advantage to just fondle Naruto. Naruto's only real win con is his Rasen Shuriken, so he needs to try to use it. Now, this might be controversial, but I'm not going to be scaling Naruto in his Four Tails chakra cloak, nor Luffy while he's Nightmare Luffy. One, because Luffy's already strong enough, and two, Naruto as the Four Tails isn't 100% him fighting, and even so, Nightmare Luffy is probably going to take it. But calculating that strength is a whole different ball game that I'm just going to save for another whole dedicated video on that topic. Now we get into part 3, with Sage Mode Naruto versus Gear 4th Luffy. Now this is where these two boys get really powerful, and it's hard to say who gets the bigger power increase, at least on the surface. It's easy to say that Naruto's Sage Mode is ridiculous, but Luffy's Gear Force was incredibly impressive and somewhat underrated. However, I think potentially his greatest new set of abilities were his armament haki for that little bit of extra damage, but more crucial, his observation haki, basically giving him a version of the Sharingan. In fact, in some ways you could even argue that observation haki is a better precog ability than the Sharingan. Unlike the Sharingan, you don't need to actually see your opponent. Not sure if that's a bit of a controversial take though. But there, I did say it. But now, let's look into how this match would go. Right away, Naruto's base stats have raised significantly, as well as his own perception. He can also now throw his Rasen Shuriken, which is probably the biggest increase in strength that he's gotten. He's able to create massive Rasengans and even dual-wield Rasengans, taking out massive summoning creatures of pain. However, in my mind, Luffy was already taking out sea creatures relatively the same size as Pain summonings, if not a bit bigger, so whether or not how important that is in scaling these characters, I'm not sure. Now, I'm also going to come out and say it, I would still say Luffy's AP is still much greater than Naruto's. Gear 3rd is Luffy at his strongest, and Doflamingo claims that Gear 4th bound man is Luffy several times more powerful than his previous limit, which would be the Gear 3rd that I just mentioned. Now, several often translates to 3, and we know this Gear 3rd was around a 10 times multiplier to his base stats, making Gear 4th about a 30 times multiplier from his base, or a 3-time multiplier to his Gear 3rd strength. Luffy's strongest attack in Gear 4th, and the one we're going to be discussing the most, is the King Kong Gun, which to me is an island level AP attack, shown when he broke Dressrosa by punching Doflamingo through it. So it's not just Luffy punching Dressrosa and that's destroying it. He's literally punching Doflamingo, and the force of momentum of Doflamingo hitting the ground is what's causing Dressrosa to break apart. So while he's not strictly destroying an island, given the fact that he's doing it through punching Doflamingo, I am going to highball it and say it is an island level feat here. Sage Mode Naruto just isn't scaling anywhere near that high in terms of AP. The Rasen Shuriken is Naruto's strongest technique, and even in Sage Mode, I can't see any evidence of it being stronger than City Block level. And even then, I reckon that's actually jerking it off a little bit. Even if Naruto used 4 Rasen Shuriken, it wouldn't come close to what Luffy could do with his King Kong Gun. You can even argue that anything short of a Rasen Shuriken just wouldn't even hurt Luffy in his Gear 4 state, because Doflamingo, a guy that was cutting up half of meteorites, couldn't even scratch Luffy in his bound man. So Naruto's only option would most likely be the Rasen Shurikens, which might be even hard to hit Luffy, since in Gear 4 Luffy can fly, giving him a massive mobility advantage. Sage Mode would negate Luffy's observation haki, since it gives Naruto himself a form of precog, so they're kind of balancing each other out there. But in strength and durability, he's just getting outclassed. Now, to give Naruto a chance, I'm going to talk about him dodging the 3rd Raikage in the 4th Shinobi War. Technically, Naruto wouldn't have done this feat yet, but considering we can't tell if Naruto's Sage Mode got stronger over this period of time, I am going to let Naruto have this speed feat. So we know the 4th Hokage is around the speed of light, or just below it. For this video, we'll say he is the speed of light. Now, his father, the 3rd Raikage, who possessed the same jutsu, will say he's the speed of light as well, and when he was alive, he may have even been faster than that, but thanks to the Edo nerf, I'm happy to say he's just sitting at light speed as well. And Naruto in Sage Mode is able to dodge the third Raikage. Now, technically, you could say it's just a reaction feat thanks to his pseudo precog abilities, but fuck, I'm gonna count it as a light speed feat for Naruto, just so we don't do him dirty. Because, like we said, Luffy should still be many times faster than light, considering even pre-time skip in base he was reaching those levels. And post-time skip, his base form physical abilities have raised significantly, an example being dodging a pacifista's laser and one-shotting them. But I don't want to tattle on about Luffy's speed anymore. It is very contentious. It should be obvious why I think Luffy gets the win again. Greater speed, greater AP, and potentially greater durability. Sage Mode does give Naruto a boost to his durability, but I don't see it being stronger than the increase in durability that Luffy got. So for this part, Luffy gets the win again. But don't worry, Naruto fans, here's where Naruto strikes back. Now, these next two parts, I'm going to breeze through a little bit quicker than the previous three, because we already have a good idea now of what our characters can do. But now we get into KCM 1 Naruto versus Luffy post-katakuri fight. So Luffy has Bound Man, Snake Man, and Tank Man. He also has Future Sight Observation Haki, being able to see a few seconds into the future. But Naruto is still lagging behind in speed. Even in KCM 1 mode, I can't really find anything better than Naruto outpacing the Raikage, making Naruto at the most just over light speed. And his attacks still aren't going over large town level. However, where Naruto does come in clutch here is with his chakra reserves. He can summon hundreds of clones to fight in a war, even taking on Kage-level opponents with just shadow clones. So while his stats don't match up to Luffy, if Naruto summoned 100 clones, he could definitely get in some Rasen Shurikens. And because they're attacking on the cellular level like we've discussed, this should definitely work on Luffy, at least in my opinion. Even with Luffy's better AP, it's not really huge AoE blasts. It's more pinpoint strikes. So he couldn't smash all the clones at once, especially if they were widely spread out. And Naruto could just outlast him in Gear 4th, giving him the W here. Now, part 5 of this video is where I'm going to be throwing down massive spoiler warnings for the One Piece manga and Luffy's new abilities. So if you don't want to be spoiled, just jump off the video now, guys, because the remaining part of this video is just going to be all spoilers. Now, if you have enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe, though, before you leave. Alright. Now, assuming everyone here doesn't care about being spoiled or has already read the manga, let's continue with part 5. And we have KCM 2 Naruto versus Sun God Nika Luffy. Now, straight away, we have Naruto stomping in the AP department. It's completely done a 180 here compared to the previous 4 parts. It's completely off the charts, potentially doing small country levels of damage with tailed beast bombs. But even if it was just island level damage like Luffy was doing, it's insane because he can just freaking spam it. And like we were saying before, Naruto has the massive shadow clone advantage, and these clones are even stronger, not to mention a Kurama avatar that significantly boosts his strength stat. Now, Luffy still has the speed advantage, and it gets a little bit unquantifiable as the series goes on and he just progresses in terms of strength. But he should be massively faster than Light, so if you want, you can say he just wins. However, like all of you, it does seem a bit cheap to say that Luffy can just walk in and blitz Naruto and take him out before he can do anything. I think here is where we need to use some realism, guys. Because despite the fact that narratively Luffy should be massively faster than Light, it doesn't seem like he can just bitch slap Naruto. So I am sorry if this makes me look like a hypocrite, but this speed alone doesn't just beat Naruto. And I know that doesn't make sense, but speed scaling in anime just doesn't make freaking sense. However, if you want to say with Luffy's speed advantage over Naruto and his powers that border on Toon Force, then you have an argument there for Luffy winning, and it's more realistic. I mean, he potentially could turn himself into a giant, grab a tailed beast bomb out of the air, and fucking turn it into a basketball and dunk on Naruto. We just don't know the limits yet of the Sun God Nika form and how ridiculous it can get. I mean, gag characters in fiction often are the most powerful characters ever. Just look at Bugs Bunny or Saitama. And yes, I know strictly there's more to Saitama than just a gag character, but he has gag character tendencies. So if you guys want to say that Luffy can pull out a giant mallet and just start smacking tailed beast bombs into the stratosphere and then just completely one-shot Naruto, then that's fine. I will just say, though, that even with the Sun God Nika powers, Luffy wasn't able to just automatically stomp Kaido. So there obviously are limits. And I would say, realistically, Naruto would get the better of him. Now, any stronger version of Naruto I shouldn't have to go into, because then you start going into potentially planet-level feats that One Piece characters just aren't really matching yet. I was only joking about it earlier on in the video, about Oda making his characters get massive power increases like Kishimoto did. However, it wouldn't actually surprise me if we do get to see some of these characters getting huge boosts in power. Maybe not to the level of Naruto characters, but people like Shanks, Luffy, Blackbeard, Roger, Rocks, Garp, Sengoku. These characters, I reckon, are going to be utterly ridiculous at the end of this series, and I can't wait to see it all unravel. But wrapping this video up, we have Luffy winning the first 3 parts of this matchup, with Naruto winning the remaining 2. However, like we said, depending on how you see the Sun God Nika powers working, I can accept Luffy winning there. And if you take Luffy's speed too seriously, then he would definitely stomp all 5 rounds. But I reckon this has been a pretty fair analysis of how these characters would match up next to each other. Let me know down in the comments what you think about it all. This video has been tons of fun making. It's my first real in-depth look at a versus battle where I've tried to use scaling. Like I said in the beginning, I don't consider myself a true power scaler. I love power scaling characters and now analyzing verse battles between them, but I'm not as professional at it as you might have seen some people. Like I said, I like to consider myself a novice. But if you have enjoyed the video, please make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow, so we can get this video out to more people and have more people just shitting on my takes of it all. But like I said, guys, I've been Jack Cypher. I've really enjoyed making this video, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Cypher out.